Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
What is up? Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on a Monday today here. My name is Tom Dougherty, your host. This is the college football edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, which is always brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. So we'll get right into it with some talk on the college football world, going around as we usually do, try and cover as much stuff as possible. Getting across the nation. We got over 150 different college football, or at least Division I programs out there. We like to talk about our Power 5 schools and try and guess who's going to get snubbed this year. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk whether it's going to be a 6-team or an 8-team expansion in the playoff. It's all been kind of speculatory as far as media members just kind of asking coaches and seeing what their model that they like, the model they like the best. As it prompts the experts to try and go, what would it have been like if we did this? What would it have been like if we did it in 2016 or 2017? And who would have played who, and what would have happened if we decided to go to an expanded playoff? Of course, expanded playoff just means more games, which means more opportunity for injury, which means more wear and tear on the body before it gets to. We're assuming. So these top players, a lot of these top players that are going to be involved possibly in a college football playoff scenario, not most of them. I don't know. You can get a percentage out there. It's probably not as high as I think of guys that from those teams are going to go to the NFL. I'm saying the wear and tear on their bodies from the extra games is going to affect them down the road in their playing career, but while it also could affect them down the road just in their lives in general. So. Just take that into account. But more football. We're not in the business of just kind of saying, oh no, we don't want any more football. We'll take as much football as we can get as a country, because that's the sport that we love, and it's a sport that we've been waiting quite a long time for, ever since the last snap of the Super Bowl, at least, and of course people who are both NFL and college football fans. There are those who definitely who are much more into their college team, whether they're the ones that live right down by the stadium or in the same town of the stadium, or they travel from from near or far to go to the games every day, or every week. That's pretty cool. But we're going to get into some stuff regarding fall practices getting started here pretty soon. Nick Saban's been extended. His contract's been extended at Alabama. We'll give some comments on that, and then also our predictions. And I know we've given predictions on the show before regarding like I said, who I think is going to get into the college football playoff this year, which is we're still at 4 teams. Who's going to get snubbed and such. But we also can talk about just player predictions, Heisman Trophy predictions, who's going to be the dark horse kind of guy that we haven't heard about and come out of nowhere, who's going to be a team that kind of comes out of nowhere. Even though college, I guess there is one team that I wouldn't say come out of nowhere, but one team that maybe peaks a bit early or just kind of starts playing well a little earlier than we thought that was going to happen. Like at Miami last year, we all kind of thought this was going to be the season that Miami was going to put it all together. And then they ended up going undefeated for the most of the season. And then obviously we know what happened at the back end of the season last year with the loss to Pittsburgh, and then in the ACC championship game to Clemson, and then losing your bowl game too, just to put a cherry on top. Really make you put a sour taste in your mouth probably during the whole off season. You're just probably, I bet you Mark Richt and the guys down in Coral Gables are really, really excited about this coming season and trying to wipe clean that I don't know what you want to call it, meltdown at the end of the season last year. I mean, it was kind of tough. I mean, you get Pittsburgh at a 10 a.m. game on the road. You get punched in the mouth quickly, low scoring game. I mean, you could have won the game probably 4 different times, but you don't. And then you get Clemson after that game, and Clemson's coming off another division win. They're as the height of their power. They're trying to roll right into a college football playoff, undefeated team. Well, actually, did they have one loss? Or they undefeated? They were the first. They were the number 1 seed after that game, obviously. And then they just swiped the floor with you guys. I mean, Miami never really were in that game at all. So, and of course, Clemson goes and gets the same thing done to them by Alabama a few weeks later in the semifinal game on New Year's. I think they do New Year's Eve or New Year's Day for those semifinal games. But yeah, it is what it is regarding last season. As we're coming into this season, and there's a lot of exciting things. I mean, there's things where we have a lot of turnover. We had obviously when you have a draft like we did last year, where we have 5 major names get taken out of the college football, realm and move along into the NFL. You're gonna have to see some men step up, some guys step up. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson at UCLA, he's going to have his number called a bunch this year as he comes in and takes over for Josh Rosen. USC, I don't want to just assume it's going to be JT Daniels, because the kid's going to be, technically he should be a senior coming into the season in high school. But he left early. Remember, he left, I think he went to Mater Dei, which is a football powerhouse, and he felt like he was done. He'd done everything he needed to do to get ready for college, college football, the level of play. And I guess the USC coaches thought the same thing, because they were excited to get him on campus, and they were getting him in that quarterback room, as they would have had 2 guys. I mean, Matt Fink and Jack Sears have been there already, and they're like, "Hello, we've already gone through spring football. We've done all this and that. He can't even put pads on yet for spring football or do anything, and we're already here, and now he can try and jump us, leapfrog us into the starting job." But it is what it is. Talent can do that for you, and whether he's going to implement that talent and use it and add some hard work on and use that to get to that starting job as, he'd be a true freshman coming into the season. Also, we have Kyler Murray. That's a whole different story. We talked about him a lot on this show, how if you're Lincoln Riley, do you try and put the brakes on a little bit this season? Does that change your play calling at all? I mean, the last thing you want to do, I'm sure, if you're Lincoln Riley, is have him get hurt for any reason. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get hurt, but it is a collision sport. It's a sport that breeds a lot of opportunity for injury, and whether it's in fall practice or it's in the games, Kyler Murray is going to be at risk this whole season, and he has a massive price tag on his head, because he's going to be. The thing is, I don't know. You go to a school like Oklahoma because you want to be in the NFL. That's why you go to Oklahoma, because they are a very good football program. They get players in the NFL. They promote you very well. They market you very well. You're in a good conference that markets very well. Especially for offensive players, because it's definitely more of an offensive conference. But you're doing that to especially when you're the athlete of the caliber of Kyler Murray, you're doing that to get to the next level. He's already gotten to the next level. He's already signed a contract that's gotten him millions of dollars. He's already made a commitment. Well, okay, the whole thing about commitment is the problem we're having here, because he's like, I want to fulfill my commitment to the university, so I'm going to play for 1 year. Just the 1 year, just to make you. You're not doing. The only reason you're doing it is to fulfill your commitment and to maybe make good with some players or some coaches that you made promises to, because you didn't know you're going to get drafted 9th overall by the Oakland A's and get a $4.7 million bonus check with your name on it. So that's kind of how it works in college in professional baseball, folks. You can get drafted like that and see some money in front of you, like, oh, hello, especially if you're a first round pick. But I mean, if you're Lincoln Riley, like I say, do you put the brakes on? Do you kind of baby him a little bit? Do you wrap him? If you're the A's, do you call every week? Hey, Lincoln, can you wrap him in? Can you put some bubble wrap on the kid, please? Is he wearing extra pads? How's the shoulder? How's his knee? I mean, every single thing, because this is a baseball. He's going to be he's a possible 5-tool player. I mean, he's a little undersized for quarterbacking in my mind, but he's a perfect prototypical speedster outfielder. Get out there. I mean, he's got good hits for good average. Actually has a little pop in his bat too. Had 10 home runs with the Sooners last year, hitting the cleanup for them. So, I mean, he's gotten to a point here where, decisions may be made for you because of your abilities to do certain things over other things. Because, I mean, you're too short to play quarterback, buddy. I'm sorry. You're just too short to play quarterback, and you can go make more money playing in baseball. You'll go be the new starting center fielder for the A's. Go through their amazing farm system. The player development for the Oakland Athletics is pretty much second to none when it comes to minor league baseball. And for the Oakland Athletics, they have some of the best player development personnel in baseball around the whole world. I mean, it's crazy how they get these guys ready to go, as they have. I mean, been notoriously known as a team that drafts players and develops them into stars. They play for 2 or 3 years in Oakland and they get traded. So, I mean, if you're Kyler Murray, obviously he came on the broadcast. I mean, being out here in California, I get to watch. We have the local broadcast for the Oakland A's. So he was actually in the studio with them after he signed the contract. Talked to the commentators, Ray Fosse and it's Glenn Kuiper, and they for the Oakland A's, and he's a great guy, great kid, has a great demeanor, spoke well to the public, and he's in front of a bunch of people, obviously on their broadcast. So seemed like a great guy, and it's going to be a great addition to the A's organization. But just wrap the kid in bubble wrap, put some extra knee braces on or something. I don't know, but just this is interesting because. The A's. If you're Dave Cavill, the A's president, or Billy Beane, the A's general manager, or I think he's the vice president of baseball operations now. They shuffle for front offices. If you're Billy Beane, you're like, please just get through the season healthy. Please get through the season healthy. Please get through the season healthy. It's just nerve-wracking, honestly, for me. So that's another guy. I know I talked a little bit of a long time there on Kyler Murray, but he's just one of the three, or that's one of the three I've talked about so far. I'm not sure what honestly, we'll see who the next Jake Allen is going to be. Coming from a small school in Wyoming, usually there always is one guy who can make a splash from a smaller school. And speaking of a small school, actually, one of the quarterbacks we're looking forward to watching this year in the NFL came from a small school in Northern Illinois or Eastern Illinois or Northern Illinois, was it, for Jimmy Garoppolo, as he takes over the reins as the first time as a full-time starter for the San Francisco 49ers. They never know. Small schools, there's guys coming all over the place. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger went to Miami of Ohio. Purdue isn't the smallest school, but it's not the biggest football powerhouse. That's where Drew Brees went, and so on. Lamar Jackson. We'll see who Louisville figure. Obviously Louisville is going to be. I'm sure they're not worried about finding talent there. They seem to breed talent pretty well. And then also, who am I forgetting here? Baker? No, I talked about every. That's it. Yeah, that's about it for regarding the big names. Obviously, Mason Rudolph also is gone, and then I can't remember the guy who they brought in to take over for Mason Rudolph at Oklahoma State, but he's supposed to be crazy, man, and has all the tools, and he's also a little bit more of a runner than Mason was. So looking to see if Mike Gundy's offense might change a little bit this season as well. So that'll wrap it up for this segment. We'll go into more stuff regarding some of the reports from spring practice or fall practice. As I think teams are going to start reporting this week and then into next week as well, as the outlook for the season becomes more and more clear. Well, not more and more clear, but just kind of just it's easier to predict things a little bit more as we get closer, and we just can taste it almost, and it's just getting to a point where we are basically a month and a week away from the first week of college football, if not sooner than that. We're gonna have games on September 1st, so I think we're literally a month away in a couple days. So we'll be definitely excited to see that as we'll get things started. Of course, as college football always does very well with those neutral field games around the country. So we'll stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Oh, welcome back to GSMC Football Podcast, the college football edition on a Monday today here. As we start off our week with some talk around college football, around the whole world of college football. You know, it's a worldwide thing. Maybe that's the NFL. I don't know. The NFL has games. I don't know. We're going to see any college games in overseas anytime soon. NCAA, maybe you should get on that. Get one of these neutral field games, like this Washington Auburn game. Why can't that be like in Australia or something, or in London? I know we're gonna have a baseball game in London next year. We're also gonna have multiple, as always, we're gonna have multiple NFL games over there across the pond in good old London. As I try my not very good accent there, didn't commit to it. It wasn't terrible. All right. Okay, going into the Nick Saban stuff, as he did sign an extension, I think it was over the weekend that he did so, as he is going to be signed through 2025, and of course that comes with another raise. I mean, what can you do to a guy who just racks up championships, as he is going to... for this year is going to be $7.5 million salary before bonuses, with annual increases of $400,000 through the 2025 season. So that will put him at about $10.3 million in base pay for the last year, by the time he reaches that last year of deals, which then could. Yeah, I mean that's just the base pay, but that's before bonuses. I mean, last year he made a little over $11 million last year after bonuses, which made him clearly the highest paid coach. $4 million in signing bonuses last year. So I don't know if we're going to get to that point anymore. It looks like I think that's going to be another championship extension incentive as well. So with the extension, there's going to be that championship signing incentive of it's going to be $800,000 for that one too. So there's a bunch of different things. I mean, contract completion benefit. I mean, at the end of all these certain years, you can. I mean, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I don't really see the guy. Why would you ever leave? Well, until you retire, there's literally no reason to leave. He's got a beautiful house, I'm sure, in Tuscaloosa. He's got a nice little place in Georgia during the off season. He goes fishing. I mean, we've seen videos of his lake house. It's right butted onto this nice little lake in Georgia. So I mean, he's got the lot. I mean, what's wrong? If you could take the pressure, if you want the ins and the only thing that's really going to wear you down is the daily ins and outs of the job, dealing with players and all the problems that they have to bring up and 19-year-old issues. I mean that happen, and all this and that, and assistant coaches and AD and boosters and stuff like that. Yes, it can wear on you, but if you can deal with all that stuff, if you are good with that, then that's it. You should be just fine. I mean, been able to, I mean, coaching, the thing is, the whole point of a college coach, I mean, we talked about it, you go watch, I think they did a Football Life or was it E60, one of the ESPN or NFL Network did a special on Bruce Arians. And Bruce Arians is a coach who he just retired as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. You just saw him last year. He's been on the sideline for the Cardinals for the last, I think, 5 or 6 seasons. Before that, he was the offensive coordinator, or at least quarterbacks coach in Pittsburgh. Also was Peyton Manning's quarterbacks coach. Before that, he was coached at multiple, I think it was at Temple, multiple different colleges. And this is a guy who took single years at multiple colleges before he got the head coaching job. So coaching, you're used to moving around. Even the top coaches. Chip Kelly's been fired and has to move. He was in Oregon, then he went to Philadelphia, then for the NFL, then he went to San Francisco, then now he's down in LA. After taking a year off, Kevin Sumlin goes from Texas to Arizona, or Texas A&M. I mean, Charlie Strong barely lasted any time. He's moved around the country a bunch. Willie Taggart's moved around the country a bunch. I mean, you're used to these. I mean, even the top guys can have to get used to being very transient and being very comfortable with change. Obviously, comfortable with changing houses, comfortable changing cities, comfortable moving your family, having your kids change schools. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So, I mean, it's just the kind of thing you have to kind of take with a grain of salt and take with it as it comes with the job. As always, this is something that players have to deal with, not as much as coaches do. So Nick Saban, good for him as he gets some security there with the Crimson Tide at Alabama. So gotta like that if you're Nick Saban for sure. Gotta like the payday if you're him especially as well. So if you're Nick Saban, I mean, I would not worry about it at all. I mean, you're gonna be in the lore of Alabama for the rest of your life. So pretty much take that into consideration. And yeah, I'm willing to take all this responsibility and all this hoopla that comes with this job for a little bit longer. I mean, as long as I want to retire as one of the most storied head coaches in ever. I mean, if you think about it, there's Bear Bryant, and pretty much then there's Nick Saban at Alabama as the gold standard when it comes to coaching. Obviously, there's multiple other guys. I mean, but we could talk about Bobby Bowden. We could talk about, Urban Meyer honestly even has the same kind of, a similar kind of pedigree, being able to do what he's done at the 2 different schools, just like Nick Saban's done. I mean, Nick Saban, obviously we know what he's done at LSU and then obviously at Alabama. So good for Nick. People can think it's too much money, but he's 66 years old. I mean, his contract's going to take him through his 70 his year 70 year. So he's going to be, I think, we're in 2018. This is 7 more years. He's going to be 73 by the time this is over around there. But he's definitely being compensated quite handsomely to do so. So can't knock that. If you're a Nick Saban fan, you're probably happy. If you're a Nick Saban not so much, you're like, why is he getting that much money? Well, because the guy wins. He's a winner, and he's been a winner for a long time. I mean, this is I think the funniest thing was seeing the correlation between him winning a championship and LeBron James winning a championship. And actually, this is the first year where it actually didn't correlate. Of all 8 years in a row that the Cavalier or LeBron in general had made the NBA Finals, you looked at the years he won. Alabama won the same year, all those years, and then the years that LeBron lost, Alabama also was knocked out either in the semifinal or they lost the national championship game. So that was pretty interesting. The fact that you're able to you can compare Nick Saban. Honestly, look at LeBron James. Look what LeBron James has been able to do, making 8 straight finals. Look at what Nick Saban's been able to do. It's excellence in our sport, and it's not something you see every day. I mean, this is why these guys get singled out. You single out LeBron. You single out Belichick and Brady. You single out. Baseball is a little different because baseball is there's a lot of parity in baseball, so it changes around a lot. You don't have as many teams. I mean, you can think about the top teams in baseball right now: the Astros, Yankees, Red Sox, Indians. They have all had up and down years. The Red Sox and Yankees have had bad years recently. The Astros tanked until they finally got their championship. Indians have been bad for the last few years before they finally got good. I mean, a few years ago they got good, but they were really, really bad before that. So I mean, there's a lot of turnover in baseball versus the other sports. I'm trying to think of okay, we have LeBron in basketball. You can think about Belichick and Brady in football, Nick Saban in college football. Trying to think of the other sports here. Baseball, nope, doesn't really work. Hockey, I mean, you had the Blackhawks, Penguins, I guess you could say the Penguins in hockey if you want to talk about teams that have dominated in the last decade. So, no, I mean, baseball, the closest thing to maybe dominance in the last decade did the Giants. I know if you listen to the baseball show, I'm a Giants fan, but they have 3 championships they won in this decade. So, does anybody else have 3 championships in this decade? Does any other team in sports have 3 championships in one decade? I mean, I think the Penguins might actually have 3 in this decade. The Pittsburgh Penguins, but then I don't even think the Patriots don't have 3 in one decade. So, ha 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 ha. All right, moving right along. As Nick Saban has a season to get to. He's really, he's all paid. He's all paid up. He's got the deal. Whoever's agent is, I'm sure, was the one to really negotiate that. Nick's got bigger things to worry about, I think, or the things that I think things that are more important to him. I mean, this guy's got a lot of money already in the bank. He's been paid handsomely for quite a long time. This is kind of just, I don't want to say it's just kind of matter of factly. It is what it is. Expected payday for Coach Saban, but it kind of is what it is. And we're used to it, as college coaches are. They are obviously compensated pretty handsomely, and it's for the reasons I explained earlier with Bruce Arians. I mean, look at Bruce Arians, a perfect example of why you need to be able to compensate these coaches, because they could lose their jobs. They could be jobless in seconds, days, quickly, very easily. Just boop, don't job, no comment. I mean, you need to be able to have the flexibility financially to be able to move your family to another scenario, or at least maybe support them without a job for a long period of time before you get another one. So, I mean, look at this. Look at Bruce Arians and his coaching record. I mean, look at this. Before he got his first head coaching job, which was, I think, with the Cardinals, actually, he was the Alabama running backs coach. Because remember, this is a guy who was like buddy with Coach Bryant, so he ended up becoming a really good coach for him. So he's 2 years at Alabama. Then he was at Temple for 5 years. Then he worked for the Chiefs for 2 years. He went to Mississippi State for 3 years. Saints tight ends coach for 1 year. Then he was the offensive coordinator for the Alabama for 1 year. Then he goes to the Colts for 3 years. Cleveland Browns for 3 years. Steelers for 3 years. Steelers, actually, no, he was with the Steelers for longer, because he did eventually become the offensive coordinator there in Pittsburgh. So he was in Pittsburgh for 8 years, and then Colts for 1 year again, as he came back as the interim head coach when he's the offensive coordinator, and then Chuck Pagano was diagnosed with cancer, and Bruce Arians takes over for him for that season. Then, of course, that lands him the job in Arizona. So look at that. I mean, this is just very quick turnover. That's what they're saying. Transient coaches. You listen to the interviews they did with that special. I can't remember. I need to remember if it was on ESPN or if it was on NFL Network. I think it was on NFL Network or Football Life. Those shows are great. NFL Network does the football show and Football Life shows on the legends of the game, and they do them on even some of the best college players as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously there's plenty of NFL players who had great college careers as well. So, but no, it takes you all through Coach Arians, the tribes and tribulations of an assistant coach, and how often you have to pack it up, and move your family. Your wife has no, I'm sure she has some say in what you're going to do, but not really that much say, because she's there. She's there, of course, being a good support system and supporting you in your career. So you got to hand it to Mrs. Arians. That's Christine, as she definitely was there for every step of the way. I mean, this is a situation where you kind of have to just roll with the punches. Fortunately, Nick Saban's wife, she has moved around a little bit. The thing is, even look at that. Even that kind of leads me around full circle to Nick Saban, because he's done the same thing. He was at LSU, then he's at Miami, then he's obviously at Alabama. You could look at Nick Saban's coaching pedigree and look at his history as far as the jobs that he's held, and see how long it took him to get to this position. Look at where he's been. He was a graduate assistant at Kent State for 2 2 years. Then he was 2 years a linebackers coach. Then he was outside linebackers coach for Syracuse for 1 year. Then he was at West Virginia DBs coach for 2 years. Ohio State for 2 years DBs coach. 1 year at Navy. 5 years at Michigan State. 2 years at Houston. With Houston Oilers in the NFL. 1 year at Toledo. 3 years with the Cleveland Browns as the defensive coordinator. 4 years at Michigan State, or maybe 5 years at Michigan State as the head coach. Then he was at LSU for 5 years, and then he was the Dolphins for 1, and then the Alabama for since 2007. So I mean, you look at that. He's had his fair share of stuff as well, and he's got to be able to. Got to be able to be happy now that he's in this scenario, and he's been at Alabama for going into his 12th season there, or 13th season if I could do math correctly. I started his first year at Alabama was 2007, so I mean you could do the math, you could count it up yourself as you know. So I think probably you could say going into his 12th year. All right, that'll wrap it up for the Nick Saban stuff, as we'll come back and do some talk on our predictions as well as just general news around the college football world. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Football Podcast, the college football edition on a Monday today here, as we are coming in with this talk on we talked about coaches last time. I know we talked about Nick Saban a bunch, and how coaching is kind of a weird paradigm in college football where you can be moving along, and I mean it happens in the NFL too, football in general, and you wonder, these coaches are getting so much money. Well, they're getting that much money because they could lose their jobs, their families could be moving across country, they could be without a job for an extended period of time, because it is that kind of world where, I mean, there's only so many openings, and if you're Nick Saban, you got to be happy, and you got to don't take it for granted. I don't think he does at all, because this guy's obviously a champion level coach that's going to be pushing till he can't push no more. I mean, you wonder, okay, how long is he going to go? I mean, he's going to be 73 when he finishes that contract, or at least when the contract is due to be finished. We'll see if they ever extend him again. But I mean, you had Bear Bryant lasted about 6 months, and after he was done coaching before he passed. Joe Paterno lasted about a year after he was done before he passed. I mean, so. There's situations where you have coaches literally coaching until their dying day. So, I mean, I don't know if Nick Saban wants to do that. I don't know what what his plan is going forward, but he's at least committed to staying until his early 70s. And if you're him, you're probably just fine with that. If you're Alabama, you're probably just fine with that too, because say he does, I mean, everything you could buy him out if it comes to that point. You say, okay, here you had a great run. Here's your buyout. Take it. See you later, or have a good retirement, or whatever it may be in the next if that's required in the next few years or so. But I don't see that coming. We talk about it a lot on the show, and how Nick Saban is when he came to Alabama. He said he was the best recruiter. You're not going to get. Maybe not the best X's and O's guy coach-wise, but you are going to get the best recruiter. You're going to get a guy who's going to go and be comfortable dancing in a living room with grandparents or aunts and uncles or whoever it might be of a player that he wants to get on his team. I mean, he turned into a kind of a used, I mean, I don't want to say used car salesman, but you're going to get in that mentality where you're literally hard selling a university that should sell itself already, but also a program that you want players to come to. And the thing is, the only drawback of having a recruit for Alabama is the fact that there's so much talent. So if you are a peripheral guy, maybe you're a 4-star recruit and they already have 11 5-star recruits, and you play a certain position, and Nick Saban still wants you because he says he's going to get you on the field and you're going to play. Well, then you don't play, and that's why you see a lot of guys transfer, and you kind of like, I actually want to get on the field here. And it might be completely out of your control. There might be guys older than you, might be guys just a little bit bigger than you. I mean, you can keep working hard, keep working your butt off, keep working to get, obviously, the coaches to notice you a little bit. But it might be easier to do that other places, and that's why you see Alabama. Why wouldn't somebody, if they're going to get recruited by Alabama, just yes? Why wouldn't you want to go to the best program? Well, maybe you have family ties, or you just have a better opportunity or better rapport with the different coach, and a better opportunity to get more time on the field. So you can kind of gauge that definitely as a junior or senior in high school when you're being recruited, especially if you're a top recruit. You can gauge because you can tell who else is going to be recruited there, and who else is obviously on the team. So you can see. I mean, it's easy to go position by position because, say, you're a 4-star corner, and they just recruited a 5-star corner, and they also have a junior who's a corner, so he'll be a senior next year, probably going to start. So you're not looking to start until probably your junior year at least, and you're like, no, I don't feel like doing that. I'm going to go to a different school. I'm going to go to a LSU or a different SEC school, then maybe get some more touches and get on the field quicker. So it's obviously a trade-off. It's kind of an opportunity cost kind of thing. Like, okay, you're going to give up more playing time to get under the tutelage of Nick Saban and that coaching staff and be part of the Crimson Tide program, or am I going to go away from that and try and get on the field more so I can have the most film? I mean, I don't know. There's obviously guys these days who already kind of can project their whole future. They can project, okay, I'm really going to school because I want to be able to get the most film created, the most reps done, so I can have these NFL scouts look at me and say, okay, that guy's ready, that guy's good to go. We should draft him. He's on our draft board. That kind of situation like that, versus a player who, they just go and have get some going. They love football. They're going because they love football. They're going because they want to play football at a specific university. I mean, you even see there's players who, not everybody on Alabama gets drafted. And not everybody gets drafted. Some players do get signed, obviously, undrafted free agents and stuff like that. But there's just so many good colleges out there, so many good programs. I mean, we're going to do it the next segment. We're going to really go through again and pick conference. I picked conference champions. I talk about just narrowing it down to four teams. We'll do that in the next segment as well. But and seeing who's the prime time program this year, who is going to be able to take whether it's going to be a proven starter who's like a Trace McSorley, or maybe even a Jalen Hurts if he gets the job at Alabama. I mean, Nick Saban's already said that it's not up to. I mean, he's kind of putting his decision on hold because he wants the quarterback to win the team. He's saying that whoever the starter is going to be needs to win the team, which means, I don't know, is that going to divide your locker room? Are you going to have half the squad wanting Tua, half the squad wanting Jalen, or are you really going to put it on the squad to say, hey, you need to find, we're going to figure out who this leader is going to be of our offense, and then we're really going to rally behind him, and we're going to make him the starter. So whether Nick's been able to pull aside his offensive players and tell him that, so remains to be seen to see how that kind of works. But that comment kind of raises questions like, okay, you're going to put it on the team to to have your quarterback win that team. So you're going to probably come to your team after a few fall practices and say, all right, who led you the most? Who'd you feel the most comfortable in the huddle with? Who'd you get the most confidence in? I mean, you're kind of putting him on the spot a little bit there to pick, be a big part of this program. Obviously, picking players, but it's obviously you're putting the ball in their court, which, I mean, you got to love to have a coach like that. I mean, if you're a star receiver or a tight end or a running back, whoever it is, skill player, and your coach is like, who do you feel the most comfortable with? Who do you have the most confidence in the huddle? Who do you think was going to get the job done when you came line of scrimmage? Who do you think called the plays the best? Who do you think executed the best? Who do you think was the most comfortable in the pocket? And you really give them their say as to what they think, because if they're the guys who are going to be out there catching the balls, there's going to be guys out there blocking for them. So it's actually not a bad idea. It's getting your offense involved and forcing the quarterback to win the trust of the team, and then that would earn them the starting job. So that's not a bad way of going at it, and that's why he's the best coach. Obviously, like I said, there could be negatives of it, as there is negatives of everything. It could technically has potential to create a rift in the locker room, where if the team is split on, I like Tua, I like Jalen, I feel better with Jalen. It comes down to it. Me personally, I think if that's really what's going to go at it, and Nick Saban's going to force them to get on one page and not be split, I think he's a good enough coach where he's going to have the assistants to do that, to make sure that they're not doing that. But if you're from a skill position standpoint, I would say Tua is the guy, because he is going to stay in the pocket longer. He's going to extend plays with his legs and also keeping his eyes on the field. Jalen has a tendency to just kind of drop and run. When he doesn't see his first progression, he'll drop his eyes and just try and take off and use his legs. Tua definitely has a tendency to not do that, where he'll go off his first read, but he'll also keep his eyes up and look for a play on the field while also running the ball. So that is always going to help your receivers and those blocking for you, because you're going to get the ball out of your hand quicker with them having to keep blocking for you. So I'm thinking that Tua, going off that, I'm thinking Tua is going to earn the job. Obviously, it's going to come down to fall practice, because Tua couldn't really do anything during spring practice due to that finger injury. So we'll see what's going to happen. Nick Saban's a guy. He's been paid his money. Now he's got to make a decision when it comes to his quarterback this season. All right, going through some general stuff. We have some news. Actually, I want to go over really quick here, because I'm seeing that the running back for Michigan, Kareem Walker, a top 50 recruit from the 2016 class, is actually transferring to a junior college in Kansas, and it's actually Fort Scott Community College, which is pretty interesting, because Fort Scott Community College is in the same conference as what is it? Independence Community College. And Independence Community College is the focus of the newest season of Last Chance U, which is on Netflix. So they've done, I think, three seasons of Last Chance U. We've done 2 at down at that school in Eastern Mississippi, I think of what it is, or Eastern Mississippi Community College, EMCC. It was the first 2 seasons of that, and then this latest season is at Independence Community College in Kansas, who is in the same conference as this Fort Scott Community College, where at Independence, it's a very similar thing, where they're going to get they actually have a running back from Michigan at the Independence school. They have a running back from Michigan. They have a guy from Texas Tech. They made it unlimited. The state of Kansas used to have a rule where you only can have 20 players from out of state. Now they have there is no cap, so they can have as many as they want from out of state. I know that Fort Scott is going to be also getting a receiver from Rutgers as well. These are all kind of the bad apples that are trying to regroup themselves through community college, whether it's going to be because of a drug incident and they were suspended, or there was a conduct incident. Right now at Independence Community College, they have Malik Henry, who was a 5-star recruit out of actually I can't remember where he went to high school, but he's a Florida State guy, and was going to be the next Jameis. They were seeing him was going to be could have started his freshman year, such and such. He's obviously got all the size and ability to do it, but it's kind of just what's going on, what's happening to him. We have to wait and see, obviously, what's going to be happening. I mean, Jason Brown is the head coach of Independence Community College, and you can see in that first episode of the docu-series was not the best. I mean, they're all rowdy, ready to go. They got so much talent on this team, but it's a bunch of. I mean, I want to call them. I don't want to be too negative, but these are guys that need to get their stuff together. They need to figure it all out, put everything together, because they have the talent, they have the physical ability. It's just between the ears. It's in the head, kind of a situation where you need to be able to implement it with mentally as well as physically, and it's tough to do that as well. All right, we'll cut it right here, and we'll come back after the break and do some more talk. I'll give you also some more predictions regarding outlooks for this season and more like that. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Football Podcast, the College Football Edition. Final segment of the day today here, as we are going to come in and talk some predictions for this coming season as we're coming closer and closer. A month away from the first game of action. As you know, we always have those neutral field games around the country for the first couple of weeks. I mean, whether it's going to be in Orlando or in Texas or in Orlando or Texas. I mean, I think that's it regarding neutral field sites. There's probably one more that I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head, but it's going to come down to who is left out. I think it's always who's left out, and whether it was Ohio State one year, like last year, or TCU the year before, or what I think it was the year before that. Who's going to get left out? Right now, Pac-12 looks primed to have a team left out because they don't really have a team that's really going to be dominant this season. It's going to be a bunch of teams that lose maybe a game or two, and they kind of beat up on each other. So they kind of lose out on that, and it's unfortunate. It's because you only get 4 teams. And then, I mean, the thing is, we're talking as if we didn't have it, as if we had it better before. We didn't have it better before. It was only 2 teams. Basically, you had to be number 1 seed or number 2 seed. You got to be the number 1 team and the number 2 team in the country. You have a chance, obviously, to get into the final, to a conference or a national championship game. That is, at least now they expanded it to 2 more teams. You have at least 2 more teams who have an opportunity, and we've already had twice a 4th seed win the national championship. So that goes to show that you think that you have a tendency maybe to get to 6 teams, and you could have a 6 seed win the national championship. Yeah, it's whoever gets hot. I'm a proponent. I know that the 8-team thing is more popular than the 6-team thing, but I think the 8-team thing is better. The 6-team is a little bit better. It does cut out a game for some of the schools, and it puts a premium on winning your conference and winning obviously the regular season games, even on a premium. You say, you could do the same thing with the 8-team. Is you can just make the first round of the playoffs. First round of the playoff is not neutral field. First round of the playoff is at the stadium, and obviously the higher seeds get home field advantage. So you could do that and put a premium on finishing higher up. But why not give the 2 teams a bye? The 1 and 2 seeds, give them a bye. That would put even more premium on winning your regular season games, winning your conference, becoming that 1st or 2nd seed, just like it was when you had the BCS, the number 1s and number 2, the number 1 and 2 seed. You got to be number 1 or 2. Now you're back to that 1 and 2 gets a bye. You play just like the NFL. You have a wild card weekend. Like in college, you can do the same thing. You have those. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Do you have those games at a neutral field, or you have them at the actual stadiums? Because then you think the next week you'd want. So so last year it would have been number 1 Clemson, who's number 2? Number 2 Georgia, number 3 Oklahoma, number 4 Alabama. So you'd have, and then number 5 would have been Ohio State probably, and number 6. I'm trying to think here. Who was the AC? Well, AC you already had an ACC champion. USC. You get, or maybe even you can throw a UCS or USF in there, UCF if you want as the 8th seed or the 6th seed, or Wisconsin or something like that as the 6th seed. So it doesn't matter. So the 6 plays the 3. So you have Oklahoma versus we'll just say for sake Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Wisconsin as the at-large. Then you have the 4 versus 5. So you have Ohio State against Alabama. What's wrong with that? The winners of that play. So obviously the lower seed, whoever. So say Wisconsin beats Oklahoma. Okay, the 6th seed, they're going to play Clemson, and now the 2 seed plays the winner of the other game. So I mean, you know how it works. The same kind of way it is in the NFL, where you have the 2 teams have a bye. And do you have? So the only question is, okay, well, Tom, do they play the first week, the wild card week, at a neutral field? Or do they have the games at home? Or then, what about the next week? Do you not give Alabama? Do you not give Georgia and Clemson their home game? You could. You got both. You get both the first 2 weeks, because you're narrowing it down from 6 to 4 like that. It's 1 week. You're 6 to 4, just like that. I mean, the 8 teams. You're like, oh, it's the same thing. You're just adding one more game to it. I think you should add one more. I'm okay with adding one more game. Just take away one of the cupcake games. I know they make money for the smaller schools and such, but maybe make it more premium, where you can you're going to give one of those schools more money. I don't know, to beat them basically. I know the big powerhouses pay. Like Alabama pays Citadel to put them on their schedule, and so they could play them before the Iron Bowl, the little warm-up game before the Iron Bowl. So you could keep that game, and you just have one less game up. Well, I mean, actually, the SEC already has. Actually, the SEC actually has 4. They have 4 non-conference games. They have 3 to start the season off, and they have the one in the middle there before the big rivalry game. So whether you're going to narrow it down to SEC would narrow it down to 3 games. Everybody else would narrow it down to 2 games regarding your non-conference game. And then obviously the conference schedule is really what matters. It would just, the teams that would kind of hurt probably would be like USC and Stanford and Notre Dame, who all have to play each other every year, regardless of conference. So Stanford and USC already have a built-in non-conference game. And then obviously there's teams that don't have conferences, like the military schools and Notre Dame. Actually, I think Air Force is in the Mountain West. That's the only one that's actually in a conference. But yeah, so I mean, that's my ideas. I mean, if you want to make it a premium to win to be the number 1 seed and number 2 seed, you get a bye, and then the other 2 teams play an extra game. So it is what it is. I mean, you could do the same. 8 teams wouldn't be bad either. Then you have the 1 versus 8. You get 2 more teams in there. I think it just kind of why have a 1 versus 8 matchup when you could just have them play not have to play a game. I don't think you're going to have an 8 seed beat upset a 1 seed. I don't think it's going to happen. I think so. So say like last year, you would be okay. We can go through it. We are 1 through 6. We'll say Wisconsin was 6. You could say USC 7, USF 8. You think Georgia's going to have any problem with USC last year? That roster? I don't think so. You think Clemson's going to have any problem with UCF last year? I don't think so. In a meaningful game, because UCF won their bowl game. That didn't mean anything. Who they play in their bowl game? They played Auburn in their bowl game. Yeah, Auburn was pissed. Auburn was pissed because they got a chance to make it to they actually made it to the SEC championship game, and they missed our opportunity. They beat Alabama, And they lost the SEC championship game. Oh, they think, we beat Alabama though. We should be able to get into the college football playoff. Nope. Alabama's in, and you're not. And they were not ready. They did not want to be in that game. I think it was a Chick-fil-A Bowl, whatever it was, last year. That was the last thing that I think that team, the Auburn team, wanted to do was play that game against UCF because they thought they should have been playing a much more meaningful game against a Clemson team that they may have had a good chance against if they really were putting their nose to the grindstone in that meaningful game. All right. As far as the predictions go for this season, I know we talked about the conference titles. I know I picked Washington. Did I pick Washington or Stanford to win the Pac-12? We'll go through it again and give you my picks. I mean, I'll take Alabama to win the SEC again. I think they're gonna, or not again, but once again, as they didn't win last year, but I think they're gonna come back win this year with Tua as the starter, Tua Tagovailoa as a starter, and fending off. It'll be a rematch probably. This time they'll fend off or a rematch of the national championship game from last year in the SEC championship, as they should be able to beat Georgia there. In the ACC, don't see any reason why Clemson can't repeat. Miami, I don't think is going to really be that much of a test for them again, unless they really get the defense. I mean, really get their running game figured out, and Malik Rozier becomes the passer that everybody wants him to be, and can really drive the ball down the field. Other than that, they don't really seem a big threat to Clemson. In the Big Ten, Ohio State reigns supreme. I see them winning their conference again. I mean, you could say Michigan might mess it up a little bit, but I don't think they're quite there yet. And then, I mean, they have a quarterback, but it's just the surrounding cast hasn't really been that hyped this coming season. Big 12. I mean, Kyler Murray, if he wins his conference in the first season, you got to give him all the credit in the world coming in there. I mean, the thing is, if there was ever a conference for the A's to be more comfortable with, if you're the A's, you're like, thank God he's in the Big 12, because they have the only team that actually plays defense in that conference. I think TCU, no, not even TCU. So now I think if Kyler, obviously you still want to handle him with kid gloves if you're. If you are a coach at Oklahoma, because you know what the impending circumstances are after he's done with this season, and the money that's on top of his head, but that conference doesn't really breed many mashers, and obviously there are some guys like Gerald McCoy is a great player, obviously NFL player, went to Oklahoma, but that conference in general, he's going to play Kansas this year, and he's going to play Baylor, and even TCU has a very porous defense as well. So I mean, I don't think you're really worried about it. Just keep your knees healthy is what I'm worried about. So Oklahoma there, and then in the Pac-12. Really, I think Washington, they have the quarterback, but I just love, I know I'm a Stanford guy. I don't want to be too much of a homer. Just Bryce Love, I feel like it's got it. The Caden Smith is going to be a great play-action weapon for KJ Costello, and I just love David Shaw. So, obviously, I think it's a toss-up between Washington and Stanford. And then, so saying that the Pac-12 is going to cancel themselves out. They're not going to have a player. They're not going to have a team. They're just going to have too many beat-up teams that beat up on each other. I mean, Stanford last year, if they can get through SDSU, you only have one loss, and that's to USC. So you would, and then you obviously they play USC again in the Pac-12 championship game. And if they could have got past them, that would have been a nice little resume right there. But that was last year. So, yeah. But this year, I think Pac-12 doesn't get it. They still don't get a team in. I don't think they get a team in this year. Alabama gets in. Clemson gets in. I'd say Ohio State this year gets in because they have a good little player coming in. Miles Gaskin or Dwayne Haskins is going to be a nice player for them this year. And then the fourth team. Is it going to be Oklahoma? Do you think that Oklahoma? I mean, assuming that, do you think that I think that it's due maybe for a Big 12 team not to make it. So maybe you get a Georgia in there, maybe you get a Michigan in there as your as another team in there as well. So I mean, wait, am I only on? How many teams am I on? So you have to have 4 conference. You can have 3 conference title champions in there, and you can leave 2 out. So I mean, we left the Big 10 and the Pac-12 out. I don't think the Big 10 gets left out 2 years in a row. I think they get Ohio State in there this year with Alabama, Clemson, and then like I said, it could be Michigan, it could be a Georgia team, and then maybe or the Big 12 champion as well. And then to pick a national champion this year, I can't pick Alabama until Tua is made the starter. When Tua is made the starter, I'll say Alabama can repeat for sure. But I really like what Clemson's done with keeping their defensive line intact. If Kelly Bryant can really make a step up this season, then you can see them getting back to a championship game again. Or seeing if he doesn't step up and they have to put Trevor Lawrence in, you could see him taking that team to a national championship game as well. So definitely some interesting stuff to go ahead this season. I mean, a lot of our big programs have turnover at quarterback. Ohio State, even though JT Barrett didn't get signed or drafted big, he got signed actually by the Saints. They have turnover at quarterback. Watch out for Oregon. Honestly, that's a dark horse in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 North is going to be tough. Oregon is good. Stanford's good. Washington's good. I think they're all in the top 25. And then in the South, you have to watch out for Utah. Utah is going to be good, and they could sneak out and get that conference because that's kind of a weak division right now with UCLA and USC reloading at quarterback. Khalil Tate is at Arizona, but he doesn't have many weapons around him per se. And then also, other schools are kind of reloading as well. So that's it. That's it for the Pac-12. All right, that'll wrap it up for the show today, as we'll come back on Wednesday to give you some more talk on the college football world as we get closer and closer to the first game of the season, as well as spring practice. So everybody have a good Monday, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.